Hi guys, it's April. The end of the month has come and gone and I have read some books. So I wanted to wrap up the last half of April. If you want to check out what I read in the first half of April, I will provide the link up there somewhere. I don't know what side, either one, and down below. And now I have 12 other books I need to talk to you about. Yeah! So I went on vacation to go visit my grandmother because it was her 90th birthday. Yay! And so I kind of went a little crazy, just a touch, just a little tiny bit, with the reading, which explains why I am now wrapping up 12 books for the last 2 weeks. I apologize for nothing. So the first book that I finished was Sketchy Stories by Kirby Rosan. This is just a collection of a lot of Kirby Rosan's doodles. Things that he's doodled in his notebook. A lot of them have a title and when they were written. And in the beginning it has just a brief little thing that just explains everything. I love Kirby Rosan's work, so I decided I needed to get this one because when I find an artist that I truly enjoy, I try to collect as much of their work as I can because I am inspired by it and it just speaks to me on some level. I color in all of his coloring books. I have all 3 of them right now. I don't know if he's ever going to come out with more, but this book, I liked it. Then I continued on in the Parasol Protectorate series with Timeless by Gail Carriger. This is the last one in the Parasol Protectorate series. In this one, Alexia, like always, is continuing on in her journey of figuring out family and the supernatural elements in London. For those of you who don't know what the Parasol Protectorate series is, it is about Alexia, who is soulless, who lives in this steampunk London that deals with both werewolves and vampires. And the advantage that Alexia has being soulless is that when she touches one of them, they immediately go back to their mortal state. And Alexia is just all kinds of snarky and all kinds of witty, and it's great. She's one of my favorite characters, and I really like this series. I connect with Alexia so much. I don't know why, I just do. She is probably me if I was ever thrown into Victorian London. I also did a buddy read with Shala, and I didn't fail for once this month. I actually got it done without dragging it out. And like I said, it was a little bit because I went on vacation and I just binged this book. This is Antidark by Kristen White. This is a Vlad the Impaler retelling in which Vlad is a woman. This story centers around Lada, who is the character who is later to become known in history as Vlad the Impaler. This deals with her childhood as she's dealing with it and ending up inside the Ottoman Empire and all the different situations she ends up with. You can tell that Lada has this mindset that is very selfishly focused. She's a very violent human being. A lot of it is how she grew up, and a lot of it is environment, a lot of it is just her personality and things like that. This was a very interesting read. I knew going in that there was gonna be some things that were just really graphical and weird and all of that, but at the same time it's one of those stories where even though you know it's going to be dark, you're not fully prepared for some of the things that happen. I do like the relationship as it is shown with her brother inside the story. It is not healthy in any way. Lada is not healthy, period. So it's hard for her to have a healthy relationship, but you can see that there is some humanity in the character because of her association with her brother. And of course, there's a love triangle inside of it that I'm kind of okay with. It's one of those things that I saw coming just because of the nature of personalities and things like that. And it'll be interesting to see how things play out as this series continues. I'm still processing a lot of it. It left me in a weird place, and I know that Shayla kind of left in that weird place as well. So if you like dark and you like the history of Vlad the Impaler, I say check out this book. It might surprise you. I then picked up Wintersong by S.J. Jones. I was so freaking excited about this story because I am absolutely in love with the Labyrinth story. It is one of those fandoms that I read a lot of fanfiction about. I'm not gonna lie. There are certain fandoms that sometimes I gotta get my fix. And so when I heard that this had some of those labyrinthine elements inside of this story. I'm like, this is going on my need to read for 2017. This has to happen. And I did enjoy this book. There were parts of it that but there's always gonna be those kind of things. This does have those labyrinth elements in it, I will agree, but it by no means do you need to associate it with it at all. It is its own entity. All the connection really is the underground and the fae elements that get pulled in with the goblins and everything like that. But just by the fact that there is the Goblin Market poem inside of this story, I knew it was going to be something that I'm like, this is going to be, yep, I think I'm probably going to approve of this book. This is the story of Liesl, who has grown up hearing about the Goblin King and all the things that surround the magic of that kind of being. Now she has grown up and she has become the person who has to keep the family together because of various different things. And then one day her sister is taken by the Goblin King, and so she has to fight to get her sister back. The story continues on where Liesl and the Goblin King are, of course, duking it out and trying to figure each other out, and this weird relationship that they have and how it affects the world above. And then it ends, and I'm still, and there's things, and yes, I did enjoy the story. It gave me some of the feels. And I picked up We Awaken by Celestia Lynn. This is a story about asexuality, which is why I picked it up to begin with. I was very intrigued about the concept that would take this character, teach her about asexuality, and lead her down the path of maybe some realizations. This story is centered around Victoria, who is a dancer, and her father has passed away and her brother is in a coma, and she's dealing with all of these life issues when all of a sudden in her dreams she meets this girl that she's trying to figure out. And through the process of meeting this girl and forming a relationship with this girl, she starts to realize some things about her sexuality and what the different ranges of sexuality is. That being said, I love the premise of it. However, execution of this story I was not at all impressed with. Unfortunately, it felt very juvenile, not just in the characters but in the writing itself. The story seemed to meander all over the place. While it could have had this focus, it was here and it was there, and I didn't understand why we went this direction with the plot and then didn't close it out. This isn't a very big book. There wasn't and then the relationship as it develops felt really weird. It just felt forced in a lot of ways, and it felt like something that was written but not necessarily fully fleshed out. There could have been so much more to this story, but they left it at this really basic place that I don't think told the story of asexuality as well as it could have. And then I picked up Ghost Walk by Heather Graham. This is part of the Harrison Investigation series. I believe I have read this story before, but it was one of those ones that was on my Kindle, and I started reading it, and I sort of kind of recognized it, but not completely. And it wasn't until like halfway through the book that I'm like, oh yeah, I have probably read this one before. But I read it all anyways. Sometimes these things happen. I'm really bad at keeping the books on my Kindle organized in a fashion that I don't accidentally do that, because I read too much sometimes. Whoops. But Ghost Walk is the story of Nikki, who works for a ghost haunted tour in New Orleans. When one of her coworkers dies, Nikki is all of a sudden seeing spirits. It is also the story of Brent, who is brought to New Orleans for another investigation because he has ties to the spiritual realm and he's really good at figuring a lot of these things out. And of course, they meet up and things happen, and yes, this is a romance. Sometimes you just need a little romance in your life. Now, this story isn't an epic work of fiction by any means, but it is great entertainment, and I really like the Harrison Investigation series because I like ghosts, and sometimes I like some ghosts in my romance. It's a thing. Then I picked up A Gift of Ghost. If you can't tell, there is a theme going on to my e-reading right now. This is by Sarah Wade. In this story, you meet Akira, who sees spirits. However, she is a very scientific mind, and so she has come up with all of these reasons of why she could be seeing ghosts and what ghosts really are when she starts a new job and everything gets kind of turned on its head. She meets Zane, who is one of the bigwigs of this company, and she starts to form a relationship with him. Yes, more ghosts and more relationships. It's a thing. What I really like about this story is this Eureka type element feel of it, where this is a scientific community in this little town, but this town is based off of telepathy, precognition, auras, and spirits. So it's taking some of those supernatural elements and throwing it into science and figuring things out, which is why I like it. And in this story, Kira slowly grows into her ability and what she can do, even though she's been trying to step back from it and trying to ignore it. And it was just something that I really enjoyed. It was just right up my alley. I also had the great joy of listening to The Last Man by Jeff Shira with my father as we were driving all the way across the country, well, halfway across the country, whatever you want to call it. He likes the historical fiction, and by proxy, I really enjoy historical fiction as well. This is the story of World War I and all the things that came together and all the things that happened during. It follows several of the key historical figures and what led up to them being in the war and sometimes their ultimate demise and how all of the things happened together to form the outcome and all of that kind of thing. I don't know how to explain the story. It's the story of World War I, what led up to, what happened during, and the ultimate end of World War I. And I really, really like how it was all done. I also picked up Never Forgotten by Kelly Reisher. This is a story of Mira who ends up in Canada with her mother after her cancer comes back, and she goes and lives with her grandparents. And in the process, she starts to learn a lot about her father and what that could mean for her. Because apparently Mira is not your normal human girl. Now, I went into this story not really expecting much, and that's kind of what I got. I do not mind the story of a girl finding out that she's not fully human and all of that, but the way that this one was laid out and the way some of the characters ended up acting and how some of the situations panned out, it totally threw me out of the story. I had issues with people just suddenly accepting things even though they had been fighting them however far. And then the fact that no one would ever tell her anything, and it was like, when the time is right. Tell me, when is the time ever right for any of this? Mom is dying. She is not necessarily who she thinks she is. What is wrong with telling her that she's not just human? She's human and something else. I don't know why that has to be such a big secret. It just bugged me to no end, because that's what most of the conversations were in this book was, sorry, I can't talk to you right now. Things are happening and maybe we'll talk about it later. And then I picked up Ghost of July by Megan Applegate. Yes. It's another book that falls into my ghost stories. And this one is YA. And yes, there is romance. It's a thing. This is the story of July, which, check right there, person named after a month, I approve, for obvious reasons, who is in a new town and all of a sudden she starts seeing spirits. That is a theme. But in this story, spirits are starting to invade this town, which is a signal of an even greater issue that is going on. She ends up teaming up with a local boy named Ren and learning that her gift is something special, but it could lead to a lot of trouble and she needs to stop doing it, which, does that ever work? No. It also ends up leading her to an ancient society that is centered around the Native American culture, and all kinds of scary, creepy, bad things start to happen. I'm okay with that. I like the way that this one played out, some of the culture and folklore that got pulled into it. I enjoyed. I didn't totally hate the relationship between July and Ren, and while it had some of that teen angst in it, it was teen angst that I could understand. And then I picked up Prudence, which is book 1 in the Custer Protocols, which is by Gail Carriger. This series takes place after the Parasol Protectorate series. It continues on in the theme of Alexia and her family. I don't know if I can explain a lot of this series without spoiling some of the stuff that happens in the Parasol Protectorate series, but it's safe to say that it is brilliant. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the Parasol Protectorate series because Alexia was just on point. But Prudence, who is the main character in this, has a lot of those same elements to her, so there's just so much here. You still have that steampunk London, you have the werewolves, you have the vampires, And then you might have the introduction of some new species that start to take on some key roles as England advances its territories. Oh, these books are just so witty, they're so sassy, and yes, I'm probably going to approve all of them, because yes. And finally, I read The Shadow Queen by C.J. Redwine. This is the story of Lorelai as she fights to get her kingdom back. The evil queen has taken over all of the kingdom. She is using some very black magic to keep everything under control. But Lorelai is determined to at some point get her kingdom back, and after a series of events, her mission is kind of kickstarted into high gear, and Lorelai starts to realize that she may have some serious power of her own. And with some help from some people in the neighboring kingdom, Lorelai really starts to find her footing and what may be needed to dethrone the Wicked Queen and take back her rightful place. I do like the magic system that is in this book. There's some dragon, there's some blood magic, and just the way all of it plays out, it makes sense, and I like seeing a lot of those elements. It also pulls in a lot of those Snow White elements, as you can tell by this cover, and the Wicked Queen. Apples play a prominent feature in that, and of course there's the huntsman and dealing with having hearts ripped out and things like that. I did get a little bit of Once Upon a Time feel from all of this, but overall I did enjoy the story. So those were all of the books that I read in the last half of April. I might have gone a little skimpy on some of the descriptions and my thoughts on some of those books, so if you would like to know further information, just let me know down below and we can start a conversation. Tell me what your favorite ice cream flavor is. I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.